27 says, then God said, I apologize, my voice is kind of weird, so I have my water book. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. We're made in the image of God. Keep that in your mind. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds in the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So we understand that we're made in his image, and that everything that he's already made, the first 5 days, and the beginning of the 6th day, he made the animals, the fish, and all that. And he separated us and made us different. And just so you quickly, we all know this, but that's why evolution is complete bunk. Like, he created this, and then he created this. It's completely different, and he put us in dominion over everything else. So, just so you know, in case someone ever says, well, why does it? That's why. We're better than them, and we are the only people, we're the only thing that is made in his image, after his likeness. And just to make sure that we understand it, he says it completely again in verse 27, as it's before you. So God created man in his own image. And then he says it again, in the image of God he created him, male and female, he created them. So make sure you know, we're created in his image. Right. Okay. Now let's get into what happened when we fell. So we understand that as Adam and Eve are walking in the garden, until which case that they fell, we don't know how long that was. It could have been a long time. Doesn't matter. But anyway, so this whole time they have perfection in the garden. We understand that they're walking around in a perfect garden, and we understand that they are communing with the Father every day. Every day, they are literally walking through the garden, not hand in hand, but you could imagine that. Hand in hand with Jesus, hand in hand with, not Jesus, anyway, with the Father. And they're just talking. Why? Because that is the relationship that God created in the beginning. He created us to be in relationship with him. That's why he created us. He didn't create us because he needed anything, because that would obviously put God in a needing state. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't want anything. He's not lacking in any way. He wanted us to have a people to love and be in relationship with. And just so you know, because we messed it up, before they fell, we have a vision of what the perfect relationship looks like. Literally walking hand in hand together, literally talking to each other. We understand it's a little different now, but that is the way that he created it. Then, as the message says right in front of your face, Genesis 3, 1 to 11, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to go back through it and kind of pinpoint some things. Genesis 3, 1 through 11. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God actually say, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Parentheses, like he normally did. That's the way it's supposed to be. In the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, where are you? And he said, I heard the sound of you, Adam. I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. He said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? Now, let's break this down a little bit. It's going to be really quickly, but I really want to pinpoint some things, and then we'll be done, and we'll break up into our groups. So quickly, verse 1. It says, well, let's really focus in on the enemy says, or the serpent, the Satan, whatever you want to call him. Did God actually say? So he's already trying to undermine what the rules and what God has laid in place. He's trying to undermine. And we understand that in John 10:10 it says that the enemy's job, Satan's job, is to steal and kill and destroy. Right? And we know that he's the father of lies. And so his job is to deceive them. So he's trying to undermine and kind of trying to get in there and say, well, did he really say this? And so Eve answers back, yes. Not only did he say, we can't eat of it. In fact, he said, we can't even touch it. So just so you know, quick side pass here. God never actually said that part. He didn't say you can't touch it. No one said that. But perhaps, and I'm thinking, because in my own life, you think about things that we know we're not supposed to do. Perhaps Adam, probably either way, I can understand Adam saying, Eve, don't even touch it. Just in case, because obviously, no, too far. No time for jokes. But anyway, so Eve is the one that fell. No, that was not going to be appropriate. So Eve's the one that fell, and so maybe Adam, in his wisdom of whatever, decided to say, you know what, even just in case you're thinking about it, don't even touch it. That's not true. We don't know that. But who knows? But I think about the things in my life when I know things I shouldn't do. And this is a good tip, by the way. This is really smart. But when we think about things that we should stay away from, things that kind of catch us in sin, or things that we we shouldn't do and we accidentally do, stuff like that. It's really smart to say, I know that I shouldn't do this thing. And in fact, the best way to safeguard myself from going all the way over here is to draw a line somewhere in this region. Because I know if I don't do this, I'm never going to get to that, right? And so maybe he's actually smart in saying, you know what, not only should we not eat it, but if we can keep ourselves from not even touching it, we won't, obvious. And so maybe that's what he's doing. Or maybe Eve is just something else. Maybe she's, casting some things, and maybe she doesn't even know. Who knows? But anyway, that's what she says. She tells the enemy, not only can we eat it, but we can't even touch it. And then let's go to verse 4 and 5. And it says, we'll focus in on, he says that if you eat of it, you will surely die, right? And so the enemy says, wait a minute. You won't surely die, And then he goes on to say, well, God is keeping this thing from you, so you won't be like him. And yes, there's a little comma there, but I really want to focus in on that because of the verse that we started off with. But it says that, not like him, knowing good and evil. So two things quickly. One, we remember, for you guys, remember, the first thing we read is that we were made and created in his image, right? And so when the enemy comes back with, well, you won't be, or he knows that you'll be like him. If you eat of the fruit, then you'll be like him. Well, Eve should have been smarter than that, right? I mean, we're already like him. We're created in his image. Where's the deception, right? So the point is, what is he even talking about? We're already like him. So what is eating of this fruit gonna add to what we already are, right? So let's remember that when we're tempted to think that we're somehow lacking or anything, or that we have something that someone else, we want something that someone else has. And I've said it 1,000 times that he's created you, woven you together perfectly. And I'll come back to that 1,000,000 times. But the point is, if we have something in our minds that we are lacking something, when God has created us perfectly in his image. So that little lie shouldn't have had any tread, and yet it obviously did. Because the little linchpin at the end says, knowing good and evil. And the irony of this whole thing is, what is evil in this time? You know, there's no evil. They don't even know what the word means. But knowing good and evil. And I'm sure maybe Eve goes, oh, that seems fun. So wait, he's keeping something from us? Doesn't seem like something God would do, but maybe, you know what I mean? And how often do we have that same idea, like, well, I think I deserve this thing over here. I think this would be good to have, or why is God keeping this thing from me? Side pass. I don't talk about relationships like male, female very often. But it would have been really easy for me as I'm approaching 40, and I just got married less than 2 years ago. It would have been really easy for me to say something like, God, why are you keeping this thing from me? It would have been really easy for me to say, there's something that I know I should have, and God, you're holding this thing back from me. And I could have allowed that to push me to do things that I know I shouldn't have done. You know what I mean? Any number of things, and I'm not getting into what they could have been or what they could have been, should have been, whatever. But the point is, when you think that God is holding something back from you, then you all of a sudden making decisions in that reality. So when Eve realized, or thought that she realized, that God's holding something back from her, then she starts living out of that reality and saying, well, if that's true, well then I want to know this thing that he's holding back. I deserve it. We're his creation after all. I deserve to know what that is. And so that's big deception, right? We're created in his image. It's really important for us to really realize that. And that's why I said it last week or 3 weeks ago, and I said it again today. The linchpin of the deal is that we're made in his image. And he created us in his image to be like him and to have a relationship with him and to not lose that focus. But as soon as we start living in a different reality, we see with our eyes, you know what I mean? What we should have. We see with our eyes what we're missing out on. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, what about that? What about that? We'll get to that a little bit later too.